today we are going to give a leniency, a big leniency as a matter of fact, that I personally think is mi'ikar hadin and makes sense. So let's just once again reiterate. In general, the Shulchan Aruch says that in shuls you are not allowed to behave in a manner that is light-headedness, kalut rosh, schok v'hitul, and not to engage in sicha betela, unnecessary talk. But regard to necessary talk, we saw the opinion of the Rokeach that said no talking in shul, and the Magen Avram in the name of the Ari saying not even a sermon. Number 2, we saw one Zohar that says you're not allowed to talk about mundane talk, only holy talk. And number 3, we saw a Zohar that said only on Shabbos that applies, but during the week you can. So it goes without saying that talking in shul is an issue, and indeed it goes without saying that you're not allowed to talk during davening in places that is forbidden. If I can just quote the words of Rabbeinu Yonah in his famous Igeret HaTshuva, Rabbeinu Yonah says, if a person starts telling about his business as the chazan is chazaning, then even when people go ahead and say shush, 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 even though he's not engaging in what we call sicha betela, but rather sichat chulin, namely, it's not unnecessary talk, maybe even necessary talk. He's talking about business and maybe others want to invest with him. Still, he has a terrible aveira. So, suffice it to say that at the end of the day, talking in shul is an issue. However, all these opinions somehow do not make sense and don't jive with the famous Gemara. It's a Gemara we've quoted before about the famous Big Shul in Alexandria. It was a huge shul. It had more people than that came out of Egypt, says the Gemara. And this is the way they sat in shul. It's not that everyone sat wherever they wanted, but rather, Zahavin b'fnei atzman, Kasapin b'fnei atzman, Napachin b'fnei atzman, V'tarsiyin b'fnei atzman, V'gardiyim b'fnei atzman. Each person sat in a row with others that dealt with their own profession. Why, says the Gemara, and when someone was poor that needs a parnasa came into shul, if he happens to be, say, a zahavin, someone that deals with gold, or he happens to be someone that deals with silver, a kasapin, he would make sure to sit in that row and try to get a parnasa. So according to this Gemara, very clear, it seems like in shul they talked about parnasa. They talked about giving a livelihood to someone that doesn't have a livelihood. So not only can you talk in shul, you can talk about what we call mundane matters in shul, as Rashi says there. He actually did this in order to try to get a job, and the Gemara ends by saying, "Umisham parnasato, parnasatan shebeto," that because he went to shul and because he sat in the row with the people that dealt with his profession, he got a parnasa, he got a livelihood. So according to this Gemara, it's very clear that you can go to shul, you can actually talk about mundane matters like a livelihood, business, investing, and whatnot, and it's 100% okay. As a matter of fact, the seating in the shul lends itself in such a way that people could talk with the people that are relevant for them to talk to. Now, this is not just my diuk from the Gemara. There are other poskim that seems to say the same thing. And let's start with Rabbeinu Bechaye. There's two Rabbeinu Bechayes. Rabbeinu Bechaye Ibn Pekuda wrote the Chovat Levavot. We're not talking about him. He's much earlier. We're talking about the Rabbeinu Bechaye who lived in Spain. 1255 to 1340. Rabbeinu Bechaye basically was a Talmud of the Rashba, and he wrote the famous Perush on the Torah, and he wrote a book called Kada Kemach. And in the Kada Kemach, he writes the following words. In other words, you're allowed to talk in shul, but don't overdo it. Don't only talk in shul. Don't talk too much in shul about business, but you are allowed to talk in shul about these things. Indeed, in my humble opinion, this is the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch of the Code of Jewish Law, no more and no less. We started this year by saying that the Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to deal in shul with two things: sicha betela, unnecessary talk, and number 2, lightheadedness. Well, comes the Shulchan Aruch and says in another place, Im tzarich likanes bahem letzorko kegon likro la'adam, yikanes v'yikra. If a person needs to go into shul to say to someone, "Hey Shimon, I need you outside," he's allowed to go in. And the Shulchan Aruch says you shouldn't just go into shul and say that. You should sit down, say a pasuk, and then call your friend. Well, calling your friend is mundane talk. And the Shulchan Aruch seems to say it's no problem. And this is not my diuk. This is actually a diuk of someone from the Chasam Sofer's family. Book is called Torah Chaim. His name was Rav Yaakov Shalom Sofer. His year is 1855 to 1920. He was, of course, in Hungary, a Rav and a Posek, and ultimately he says that according to this Shulchan Aruch, we could see that what the Magen Avram said about the Ari, that he didn't even give a speech in shul, and because he, God forbid, shouldn't say anything mundane, was because he was a very holy person. Not only did he not meant this for other people, the minhag, the custom, is otherwise. The law is surak sicha betila greda. The only thing is unnecessary talk. The haraya, and if I want a proof, it's a Shulchan Aruch. We just said you're allowed to go into shul to call someone out. Now that's obviously sicha, but that's obviously mundane talk, and yet it is allowed. So therefore, it is necessary talk, not sicha betila, and it's allowed in shul. And then he adds, you said you can't even give a sermon because maybe you'll say something mundane. Says the Torah Chaim, says Rabbi Sofer, well, with due respect, just like we have a rule, mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma, if you learn for the wrong sake, you'll eventually learn for the right sake, for the right reasons. So too, if you happen to say a few jokes in your sermon that is, quote unquote, not holy talk, hopefully you'll get the holy thing. So mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma means you're allowed to give that talk in shul. And this, I believe, is basically what the Jewish people do. I mean, there's talking in shul unwarranted. That's during davening, 100% usur. We all know that. Obviously, if it's unnecessary, it shouldn't be done in shul. And obviously, lightheadedness is off the table. But if it's necessary, it seems clear from that Gemara about the shul in Alexandria that you could talk about parnasa in shul, that you're allowed to talk about necessary things in shul, not just holy talk, but necessary things for life. And indeed, if the Shulchan Aruch allows you to call someone outside, and the Torah Chaim says, from here we learn, you're allowed to talk, not holy talk in shul, I believe it's okay to talk in shul, not during davening, not during laning, not during the parts it's prohibited, but other parts of davening, and it doesn't hurt the kedusha, the sanctity of the shul, as long as it's necessary. If it's unnecessary, wait till after shul, when you're outside, but if it's necessary, it could be done in shul.